Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. One last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now, we are joined by 10th Man, Neil, Refracted Curvature, Brian's Logic, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Hello, hello, hello. Let's get it going.
Good afternoon.
Hey.
Hello, good to have you all. Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere-edge horizon, formerly known as the curve of the Earth?
That's funny.
Black Swan.
Got some mumblings and mutterings because I shouted at somebody in the pre-show and then kicked him out for not listening. So everyone's all subdued.
I know exactly how you feel.
You have no idea how I feel. I'm in shitload of pain. So that's why I'm miserable with everyone, in case you're wondering. I'm a bit more short-tempered than I am typically, and that's why. Anyway, any evidence that you can acquire an elevation angle from a curved baseline?
Impossible.
Hello.
Hello, Arwen.
That's really all you.
Go ahead, John.
I was going to say that's really all you need to prove the Earth is flat is the baseline.
How you getting a baseline if you don't have a physical position?
Well, that's why I said Eratosthenes and Alberuni. You know, they both used the aspect of Earth, which is a flat baseline, to measure angles with. Well, they didn't mention the horizon once in their initial measurements.
Did you see that I'd released a video on that called Jackanory?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Your story was better, though. That sucks.
No, the dress was great.
They're both... Yeah, yours starts out by... Again, I didn't notice this when you said it on the live show, but there was a man who wore a dress called Eratosthenes. That was how you started off. And then I cut to a picture of, the first one I found when I just did a Google search for an image, and he was there in a dress. What do you want? Couldn't have been more appropriate. Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
Gonna need that for that.
Yeah, that ends it right there. No need for Coriolis.
Yeah, you got to kind of beg the question of the Earth having a radial value if you're going to argue Coriolis of Earth. Not to say it can't be used effectively and have globers say things like planes fly backwards and stuff like that, but you still got to get into the begging the question of fallacy a little bit with them if you want to argue Coriolis.
I mean, Coriolis
You're gonna
is
need a
real.
flat plane for the radius.
Say one more time, Sasha.
It was George here. Just saying,
Jorge,
you need
sorry.
a flat plane for the radius.
I missed it because I corrected who you were. Sorry, Jorge. One more time.
No, I'm just saying you're going to need a flat plane to measure a radius. I can measure a radius on the surface of my snooker table. Doesn't make the snooker table a sphere.
Yeah, you could with the lights above the snooker table. Yeah, I don't see why not. It's a good example. Perfect setup. What do you reckon, John? Snooker table. You know what I mean? With the lights dangling above it?
Oh, yeah, I could turn that into a sphere easy.
Yeah, you could get a radius from that, no problem. I love it, Jorge. That was excellent.
His what table? Say that again.
Snooker. You know, billiards, pool. In a posh snooker hall here in Britain, maybe it's not different. Maybe it's different there. Number one, a snooker table's massive. And number two, it's got a shitload of lights hanging over the top of it. Well, that's quite a useful little setup, isn't it, for deriving radius value from the perspective view of the lights over the table. Precisely as Earth's been turned into a sphere by way of elevation angle measurements taken from a flat plane, which is what we live on. Excellent. I love it. Up until now, I've been describing, like, you know, in-ceiling fixtures when trying to just detail how John, in his genius, came up with this example. Well, verbalising it, I can now do it with just a snooker table or a pool table and a couple of lights dangling over it.
I've never heard it referred to as a snooker table. We call it a pool table.
Okay, there's a game called snooker, Neil.
Now I'm aware. Thank you.
Yeah, it's on a table about twice the size of a full-size pool table.
Is that the game where they don't have the pool balls like 1 through 15? That's what you're talking about? They're red and white balls?
You have a triangle full of red balls and then a various assortment of colours going all the way up to pink and then black. And they're in ascending value from 1 through to 8. And then your strategy is to pot a red ball followed by a ball that has a value. So the ideal is to get all of the balls that you pot red followed by black, which would give you a total break of 147, the maximum that you can achieve without snookers. And a snooker is where you put the ball in a position where your target object ball, if it's a red, has a different ball that you cannot hit, i.e. a black, between you and it. So you can't see the ball to hit it. You're effectively snookered, and that can give your opponent further points. There you go. There's the basics of snooker.
A bit like the Glovers at the moment. They're a bit snookered, aren't they?
Sorry, I had some very northern talk of snooker. Go ahead.
I'm just saying it's exactly where the Globers are at the moment. Snookered.
Yeah, various things snookered them. Yes, correct. So geometric, non-physical, refracted physical horizons are an example of a snooker. You can't get around that. Just got to foul. That's what you do when you get snookered. You foul and give the opponent points.
Wow, that works out good.
Yeah, snooker's a good game. I love snooker. Anyway, any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety? Hello? Is it all broken? I don't think so.
Gonna need an R value again.
Has anyone noticed in the live audience that there's no screen flashing and no screen tearing and everything's running smoothly and I'm in a good mood, relatively speaking? Hooray for new components. I took out my graphics card and there was a load of water damage on it. I was like, oh, that doesn't look good. I showed my wife. I showed Anthony on Skype as well. I was like, look at this. He's like, oh, that could be the problem. I was like, yeah, I think so. And somehow got a load of liquid.
So where'd the water come from?
Well, where do you think, given that I've got 2 kids?
Stupid question, you're right.
I showed it my wife and she was like, that's coffee. You've done that. I'm like, what? I was like, why would I pour coffee into the computer? She's like, you've obviously knocked a cup off. I'm like, if it knocked off, it would knock away from it. Like, obviously one of the kids has done it. She's like, don't blame the kids. I'm like, what do you mean, don't blame the kids? It's got water on it. Like I'm going to be walking around with a cup of water pouring it over a graphics card. You're like, what? Anyway, I'm surprised it was still working. When I took it out and saw it, I was like, how the hell did this still work?
bet
Maybe it was
white wine and she's
Coriolis,
white.
and you poured the coffee in the kitchen, and it just went to your computer.
No, it would be sticky though. Come on, Nathan's right.
What annoyed me more than anything, right, was yesterday I actually did cry, mainly because I'm in a lot of pain, and this was the last thing I needed. So I got the graphics card in, got it all working, and then upon loading the last piece of software to test it, it started doing something not the same, but very similar to the original problem. It was screen tearing and flashing, and I was like, that's it. I can't cope. It's too much. So I phoned up Anthony. He's like, he's just got a software confliction somewhere. Just sorted it out with me. It took a little bit of time. But I sorted it out, and all is well. But like I say, some of the troll comments I got, one of them was very detailed. I don't know if he was being a troll, but he was pointing out that he had a lower grade system than the previous spec. We're right in the middle of housekeeping, by the way. I love it. Right on a live show. Welcome to Flat Earth Debate. If you're watching for the first time, please share the show. But yeah, this guy was like telling me about his lower grade spec machine, had all sorts of widgets and gizmos running with OBS, and was only using a nominal amount of video memory compared to what I'd spec'd the new video card for. And he's like, I don't have any issues, and I've got a lower spec, lower memory, and here's how much memory it's using. Because I'd given vague ideas of what I thought the memory was using based on what I could see the monitor showing. Anyway, when you take out the part and go, no, it's just broken, there's just something wrong with it. That's, glad I've replaced it, because eventually it might have set the whole bloody building on fire for all I know. But either way, yes, you might, out there with your trolley comments, have a lower spec machine that did more than mine did before it died or was dying. But so what? It doesn't change the fact that when you've got an issue, you've got an issue, and you just need to fix it, don't you? But the trolls want to make every excuse for me not to fix a problem, because I've got to appeal to my audience to get the money to do it. Now, I'm not embarrassed about that after 5 or 6 years of dealing in Flat Earth. Yes, it would be much easier to focus on Amber Heard and Johnny Depp and get a zillion views at the moment. But I did one show on it because it's got a vague interest. Would I want to dedicate my life to that garbage? Absolutely not. This, on the other hand, doing Flat Earth, admittedly for a lower income, and having to e-beg occasionally, I'd much rather do that. I'm not ashamed of what I do. The fact that I get the support I do is a testament to how well we as a panel and I as a show host do what we do. I'm very grateful for the people who do support me. It makes me very humbled, actually. I'm very grateful that I'm in that community. Much more heartwarming to have that sort of support rather than just have maybe the same or a bit more money coming my way, but just plonked on my plate each day, or each month, if you know what I mean. That wouldn't give you any warm and fuzzy feeling, whereas certainly does when I appeal to my audience to help me, and they do. Nothing makes me feel more elated, if I'm honest. It's a fantastic feeling of community. But there we go. That's enough about that. Any evidence you can have gas pressure without a container?
No, and hold on a second. People love this show, Nathan. In chat yesterday, there was a new girl that came in, and she reminds me of me. She's like, God, I love this show. This is so great. I mean, come on. Show is at the top, baby.
Morning, guys.
Hey. Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
You'd need Earth radius and a radius of Venus being the same.
And you need a flat Earth to get it.
Yeah. What a story.
Speaking of radius, any evidence thereof? 100 people watching. Only 15 minutes in, 100 people watching. Obviously, yesterday's thumbnail, which gets recycled today, is a winner. 100 people watching in 15 minutes. Excellent. I've also made some changes to OBS, so I've got a new snazzy way of bringing up the chat now. So it's I don't have to drag it across. Very nice. When people hit the super chat, bam, I'll be there like that. Thanks for your super chat. Bam. I'm in a good mood today, even though I'm in a lot of pain.
I've been promoting you on another platform, Nathan. So let me know if you get hit with a bunch of subs.
Was it New Street? Paddington? Which platform?
It's the mob genre. This guy, Tony SoFlo, he's got a show and very live, active chat.
What are you
So I
doing?
mentioned
Don't get the mob involved.
mentioned it. No. These people just like to talk about the mob. But they're shouting you out through there. Explain to them what the show's about. So we'll see.
Fair enough. Any scientific evidence of gravity?
I would be happy with the phenomenon at this point.
Yeah, same here.
It's God. My son said it's God.
Sorry. God
I
is
don't
the...
know. What, next question?
Go on. Jorge.
I'm just saying, I don't know. Next question?
And that's why my son says it's God. It cannot be. That's why it's God, because it cannot be explained. What's your problem?
What
Is gravity because God? Hello?
At this stage, though, when you say it can't be explained, gravity, what is it then? What can't be explained?
Well, that's what I asked him. I said, is it mass attracting mass, or is it the bending of space time? He claims it's the bending of space time. You will never be able to explain it because it's God given.
It's God given or is it God? Because before he said it was God. Now it's God given.
Yeah,
So
that's what he's saying.
that would
God's
mean it's not
responsible
God
for
then.
it. Right.
Oh.
I thought he meant God, but he's meaning God's responsible for it.
For what again?
Gravity. So that's why it cannot be explained. That's why it's got science.
Back to this again. We've just gone around in the full loop. Stop. So chocolate's tried the same thing. So you're saying well, it's gravity and God because of the explanation that's required for it. But required for it? What is it? What's requiring the explanation? I've tried. Chocolate's tried. What is he saying?
Bending of
Needs an
space
explanation?
time.
Bending space time is just a geometry. It's a mathematics.
No, I think Neil. I was going to say the same. We're not asking. We're asking just what's the thing that he's looking at that makes him go, that's gravity.
I wish I knew.
Well,
Maybe I'll ask him when he gets up.
Okay, well, I found out yesterday just because I was testing the computer since upgrading it. And to do so, I had to go into Discord. And my God, the cockroaches come out after we disappear, don't they? So I'm in there while I'm fiddling with buttons, and I can't really talk because I'm doing stuff. But I'm listening to them, Xanax specifically, talking about gas having weight and going down. You're like, gas doesn't go down. Weight? Weight's the downward vector for things in air. Not air. You can't tell me how much an oxygen will weigh. If you can't put it on a scale, it's expanding in all directions, bouncing at high velocity. It's not capable of being defined in those terms. But they do define it in those terms because they've got this idea that there's gravity, stuff going down, bending space-time causing it. Right? They've got all sorts of crazy notions, but the overall overriding premise that they want to adhere us to is the idea that gas goes down. That's why you've got displacement up. Oh, helium balloon, well, that's the gases around it being pulled down because they've got weight. And weight means they're attracted to the Earth because gravity. Well, no, gas doesn't behave that way. Gas expands in all directions, all vectors, and further to that is created at the ground level. So any gas that's not at ground level, higher than ground level, has made its way up, not down.
Wait a second. It's going to be pulled to the Earth, so shouldn't we have an R for that?
Sorry, pulled to the Earth, it isn't. I've just explained at length how gases are created at the ground and then make their way up. So no, they're never going down.
I'm saying in their claim,
I mean, that's a hell of an argument. So gas goes down except for the gas that doesn't go down. Thanks.
Which is all of it.
Well,
Exactly.
I think what Neil was talking about is when they say gravity, they're not thinking about that. They're thinking of their reification of a ball Earth and how you're capable of living on that ball.
Correct.
And they'll need a flat plane for that.
Ouch. Ouch.
Well, that checks out because they've been fighting for a flat plane lately, putting horizontal planes on top of spherical balls like a dingleberry, talking about tangent planes and shit. I mean, that's literally their argument now. So their argument is our argument. So again, like we said 2 years ago, welcome to Flat Earth. snacks in the back, DJ's taking requests, and smoke them if you got them.
No, chocolate.
But-
They're now saying that. Who is saying that we need a curved surface? What's wrong with you?
You are.
What?
You are
People
saying
that
we've got a
believe in
curved
the
surface. Yeah, you. That's who. It's like who's saying we've got 2 reference frames and Earth turning underneath? Well, you are, you stupid globe-believing muppet. Who's saying we need a curved surface? Well, you are, you globe-believing retard. Who's saying the horizon's Earth curve? You are, you fundy globe-believing moron.
Nathan strawman the borders again.
Yeah, there's me strawmanning you in it. Yeah, when I'm in the chat, I like that. So I'll normally hang around monitoring my own chat when the shows are on. I don't necessarily talk. But then you'll see somebody in the chat, not realising that I monitor my shows, saying, Nathan using a straw man. It was Phil Bell yesterday, and some guy called Geronimo 6. And Geronimo 6 is telling me that I'm using a straw man. Earth not claimed to turn underneath, idiot. You doing damage control because Rachel understands that Earth doesn't turn underneath. And then lo and behold, Phil Bell comes along and starts talking about gyros and pendulums. Hey, Phil. So I was like, Geronimo, you there? You're going to set the record straight? Phil's using that straw man.
That was hysterical. I was checking that out in chat. That was very funny.
How were you
Maybe
around
the
while that was
should
happening?
Start having debates with themselves as to establish what claims they should actually make claim to.
No, it's
I've heard
funny.
Apparently, they don't know.
I've heard one of those debates. It is the most just sickening thing you'll ever hear in your life. But they'll all end up agreeing after they've made it so confusing that nobody can understand it.
Yeah, I saw that 7 years ago, before I even understood what Coriolis really was at all. I watched The Rumpus and George Netanyahu do that for 2 straight hours on Erectile Dysfunction channel. Back and forth, with one of them claiming non-inertial and inertial reference frames, Earth turning underneath, Coriolis effect observed, in line with the globe, the other claiming no effect to observe, Earth and atmosphere moving as one. And they just back and forth it for about 2 hours. It was amazing.
See? They're capable of doing it. Maybe you should bring it back for 2022, guys, because it seems like you're right back where you started.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, the thing is, though, the arguments move past them. You know, Coriolis has an antecedent of a radius, which you have to get from a flat plane.
Ouch.
Can't have axial rotation without a radial value, and you'll need a radius. And you'll need a flat plane to get it, because that's where you got it. Earth is flat, and the globe was derived from that flat plane and the measurements that are taken from it and used to navigate on it, and used to build on it. So no matter which way you dice it, you can have your globe faith, but you'll need a flat Earth to get there.
That's going to leave a mark.
More so than any other thing that we've debated about to date. The realisation, we knew all along. We knew in 2015 when Red Rhetoric was addressing Jaren via Smokescreen Design's reply when he detailed how you could do the Aristophanes or whichever example he gave with elevation angle measurements that could be done without inserting the R value. You're like, hang on. Without inserting the R value to the flat plane measurement that's being used in both instances. Well, then there's a flat plane being used in both examples. It's just one's got an R value shoved in that needed a flat Earth to get it. So you're pretty much snookered. That'll be you, globe believers. Not my reference frames, not my Earth curve, not my axial rotation. None of them are my claims. Not a straw man when I say globe claims Coriolis. It does. We just don't see any drift.
Can I ask you a question? Is it true they add the R value to the geodetic surveying after they've took some measurements, and afterwards they put a globe mathematical calculation to that after they've made an angle measurement? Is that true?
When you say geodetic surveying, for what purpose?
I was having a conversation with somebody about how the R value is measured, and they said it was through geodetic surveying. So I had a quick look at it, and it explained that it's to do with pinpointing locations on the Earth, and then thereafter adding some radius values.
I see. By way of a presupposed tangent plane.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's by way of a presupposed tangent plane.
Which is contradictory to the celestial sphere model to assert a tangent plane.
The answer on one deck is yes. They measure everything flat, then they add in our or afterwards. If you research total stations, let's say the Lite total station, they're probably one of the top, if not the top make. You will find that all the coordinates, all the raw coordinates are all in 2D and 3D flat plane. And it's not till afterwards, when all the data is taken from the Lite total stations, that they then add OR in afterwards. But they never really add OR in because they're just dealing with reality. So all this stuff about adding OR in, that's just like a mathematical game they play if they need to. No one's adding OR in reality because you don't need it. It's not part of reality. But they can mathematically add it in afterwards, and they do to make a globe up eventually. But if you get the best maps, the most accurate maps you can find are OS, Ordnance Survey maps. They're all flat plane maps. That's why they're the most accurate, because they use a flat plane. 3D and 2D Cartesian and 2D polar coordinates.
But wouldn't inserting R invalidate the measurements they took to begin with?
Yeah, it would, but Brian's not on that tip at the moment, so I saw Brian's comments in my video, or someone else's video it may have been actually, where someone was talking about the presupposition of a globe Earth, and Brian pipes up going, yeah, you'll need to measure an R value, and I know how you do it. It's done with a flat plane. He elaborated a little bit more than that, but for the consistency of this explanation, it's good enough, right, Brian?
Yeah, that's right. I actually said, I think it was on one of your videos, I said, you're going to need to measure 2 OR values, a joule radii, and I know how you do it. And I don't think I even elaborate. I think I just went, and I don't know how you do it. And I think I elaborated something about the horizontal plane, but I kept it very subtle, and I put a little smiley face. In other words, you don't even have a measurement.
Well, it's gone beyond, if you want to look at it in one way, if you've got a really exemplary heliocentric understanding, well, no matter which way you dice it, understanding the underpinnings, the foundations of the heliocentric measurements in the first instance, that would be the acquisition of dual radii by way of elevation angle measurements to Polaris off a flat plane, then your knowledge is beyond any heliocentric knowledge because you've got the root of how the model was devised in the first instance. So there is no heliocentric knowledge that's better than the origins of where their entire model came from. And the fact that that stands in violation of the celestial sphere model means that you've just got a better understanding of the world and how it actually is. Because this is how it's built on and how it's navigated and measured, regardless of how it's reified into a sphere by way of derivations of R values from flat plane measurements. But we've got now, and I would say, as a result of this direct connection to our subject matter expertise, which is flat Earth, we've got a direct connection to heliocentrism. We've expanded our scope beyond expertise in flat Earth to expertise in heliocentrism, because we know the model, how it works, and its root origins, which are coincidentally part of our expert field.
And you know what? It's excellent that you have up on the screen there, Nathan, perspective hijacking Earth curve, because what happened is what they've done is they've used angular size, right? And what they've done is that they haven't exactly turned angular size into globe because that doesn't work. They had to add in 7/6R to bring things up to where they would have to be for the angular size. So they took the perspective first, and then they started adding in refraction to make up for what the globe Earth wouldn't show, right? But then what they did is they started trying to attack us with angular size. It's like, well, the angular size of this is this, and the angular size of that is that, and they don't match up, and blah, blah, blah. But in reality, if you're looking, like the Blackpool Swamp photograph is a great example. In reality, what you're seeing in reality is not an angular size measurement of that mountain in the back. You're not able to see the bottom from the bottom to the top of the mountain. So you can't take an angular size measurement of that mountain. But you can do an orthographic view of that mountain and do it. You can get the height of the mountain off of Google, and you can do an angular size off of that, and you can match it to the tower orthographically, and you can make it look like how it wouldn't work, on a flat plane orthographically. But we don't see an orthographic view. We see in perspective view, and there is things like visual occultation and optical drop, things that our opposition have spent years avoiding. And these are what created the globe. Visual effects created the globe, and that's all they ever had. When the truth is that their globe, what we'd actually see if we added in the hidden value for their calculations and angular size change of the object, we wouldn't see what they tried to even tell us we would see. So they really did take every bit of perspective they could and made a globe out of it. Because that's all elevation angles to Polaris are, aren't they? A perspective. That's why it drops or rises in the sky.
Right. The curve of the Earth is actually the curve of the tool they use to hijack the flat plane and turn it into a globe. It's the arc of the protractor. That's all the globe is. The curved surface is the curve of the tool that was used to measure the flat plane to turn it into a globe.
I have to read this. Because this guy, is he really serious?
Is this Phil begging the question? Hold on. Is this Phil begging the question from chat about some southern hemisphere and star rotation?
Correct.
Okay, Phil begs the question. That's what he does. He's an old dog. He's only got a couple of tricks. One of them is to beg the question, like he's done in the chat. So he's saying star rotation is only possible in the south on a globe. So he's assuming that the south is south hemisphere, bottom of a globe. Begging the question fallacy. Yeah, that's his first trick, old dog. His second old dog trick is to reverse the burden and start demanding that you prove his claims. He's only, like I say, got a couple of fallacies up his sleeve.
The fallacy king, I guess, huh? Yeah, I had them both pegged.
No. Not the fallacy king. Just a couple of fallacies up his sleeve. Just a couple.
Wait, who am I? Oh, Nathan Oakley says we presuppose the Earth is a globe. Well, yes. We presuppose the Earth is a globe. Thanks, Phil.
See, there
Always
it is. At Neil, Star Trail's impossible on FE. It's like, that's your claim. So what, you're going to reverse the... Literally, I've just said this to the live audience. That he's only got two tricks. And within a second or two, he's typing it out while I'm saying it. Well, it's not possible on flat. So what you're saying there is really Neil should go about proving your claim when you beg the question of southern hemispheres. That's now his burden to prove, is it? No, it's just you're only a two-trick pony, Phil. All you know how to do is beg the question and reverse the burden. It's absolutely pathetic. Ugh.
It's actually sad.
Anyway, enough talk of the chat skanking. Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
Negative.
Again, they got phenomena to look at all day, but how are you building a viable hypothesis? Can you use any of those things as a independent variable? Still waiting.
No, that's what they think. Observation. All you need is observation, and that's validation.
Oh shit! that sounds like science.
Looks like we're knocking on the door of
televangelism.
I was just going to say
they name it and claim it.
Go ahead.
No, I wish I was funny, but it sounds more like televangelism. They'll just name it and claim it.
Yeah, basically it is.
Almost 140 people watching halfway through the show. Fantastic. Last housekeeping question. Oh, by the way, please share the show. The only reason there's knocking on 140 people watching is because regular audience members share the show. So please smash the share button if you've not done so already. A massive thank you to all of you who have smashed the share button. As I say, that's the reason we've got a decent audience. So thank you very much. Please share the show. Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
Why
gonna
would it
need
have
that
to
for
be a
that.
presupposed spherical Earth? Is there not an actual spherical Earth that we could? No.
Well, you'll need a flat plane for that.
Oh, gosh darn it!
Go on, Matt. Are you just hot
None.
micing?
There's none. Yeah.
Right, just pop yourself on mute. I think that's it. That concludes the housekeeping. Following on from yesterday's conversation, Anthony wrote me in mainly because I roped him into helping me solve my computer issue, to chatting to Rachie. So literally while I'd got him on a call to solve my woes, he added Rachie to the call and then not demanded, but it was sort of fair game. So now you've got to explain Coriolis at length for an hour or so for the benefit of Rachie, which I did. Not that I begrudge Rachie doing that particularly, but I was just a bit stressed out doing other things, which she might have picked up on by my shortness. But there we go. So I had a discussion with her, and Anthony was very keen to labour the point that what they've convinced her is Coriolis is Globiolus, and they're delighted and patting her on the back and telling her she's done well because they've got her to swallow the incorrect description of Coriolis. Now, the interesting thing that I found when chatting to her was, although I misheard her because I was half paying attention to my computer, she absolutely understood what Coriolis was, to the point where she could define it to me in a breath. No issue. With reference frames intact and the explanation of the not actual drift intact. But in spite of that, which was also quite surprising, she was content to accept that their position, she kept on positioning the anti-flat earthers as somehow having a justified position to hold in this regard. It's like, matters not, the globe position is Coriolis. End of statement. Doesn't matter what these idiots tell you their claim is and congratulate you when you understand something that's other than Coriolis, because it ain't Coriolis then. But there we go. At the end of the discussion, I hope, or I sensed, that she appreciated that the juxtaposition they make is from the observation on the ground, rotating, seeing something seem to drift, i.e. a ball tossed over the roundabout, travelling in a straight path between one person and another, nothing to do with the roundabout, but somebody on the roundabout seeing it go over the top and look like it's curving. That's Coriolis. As opposed to, I'm on a roundabout looking at a ball tossed over the top in a straight line, but from my position on the roundabout spinning beneath it, looking like it's curving. My explanation for the curve not being there, number one, that's weird. Why isn't there a curve there? It should be there. But it's because the ball has got an engine and correct for it. It's like it wasn't doing anything. It was only ever travelling in a straight line. It's the illusion that's created from you turning beneath it. That's Coriolis. And the globes claim to have that, regardless of their bastardizations of what Coriolis actually is. And it's easy, relatively speaking, to reference. Just go to Wiki and look at the GIF. It's got 2-sentence description with a diagram that shows you it happening. Or go to National Geographic and show them with 4 people on a roundabout and a ball being tossed. And then their GIF and diagram of an actual trajectory in a straight path and the curved trajectory that you have apparent from the ground as you turn beneath. So that's the actual effect that Coriolis is, and that's the effect that Globe Earth is claimed to have. Therefore, we expect to see it if it's claimed to have it. And when we don't, that's not call for anti-flat earthers to step in and poison flat earthers like Rachie into belief that, no, that's not really the claim. Coriolis at 15 degrees an hour. That's not really the claim. We claim Earth and atmosphere move together. It's conservation of linear/angular momentum. And everything's travelling together in violation of the first law of thermodynamics. You go higher and you still track with the ground that's moving beneath you, obviously, because you've retained the velocity of the ground as it threw you off it as you jumped in the air. Coincidentally, meaning you land on the exact same point, it's all negated, all cancelled, no drift to see. And that's what you're expected to see when you don't see anything. Proving Earth spins because I assumed that the entire time I explained this to you, confusing the crap out of you. Meanwhile, Coriolis is just drift that you observe if you're turning beneath stuff. Not actual drift, because the thing isn't drifting. Just seems to, because you're on a roundabout. Anyway, there we go. That wraps up that 2-day discussion about Rachie.
Well, I'm happy to hear it because I'm happy to hear that she did understand what Coriolis did, because I hadn't spoke with her what the Coriolis effect really was. It's just that, look, she's not the only flat earther where they're getting roped in to these anti-flat earthers' claims. These claims are being made up by these people because the official globe claims can't be proven. So they're making up other claims that involve the Earth being a flat, constantly horizontal, constantly motionless plane where a sun, moon, and stars rotate above, and that puts us on a rotating globe. That's where they're at.
Yeah, they're doing it in chat right now. The whole time they're doing it in chat. It's a joke. And they throw Neil deGrasse Tyson under the bus. They say he got it wrong.
Yeah, okay, so Neil deGrasse Tyson claims there's Coriolis effect. So his claim is that Earth turns beneath footballs for them to drift through the goal. Well, that drift is not the ball actually drifting. It's Earth turned underneath the ball, so the goalposts moved, not the ball. That's Neil deGrasse Tyson's claim. He says it was aided by Earth rotation. Well, that's Earth moving underneath to pull the goal in line with the shot. That's what he's claiming. Earth turning underneath the ball. That's Coriolis deflection. Now, if it was true, then Earth would be turning underneath the blimp filming the game, and it would drift away. The next continent along would come to it as it just hovers in the air, because Earth turns underneath like it's claimed to turn under the football. It's also the same claim when they say snipers have to track their target at long distances, because after the ball leaves the barrel, the bullet leaves the barrel, it will deflect, because it's claimed Earth turns under bullets. Well, that's Earth turning under stuff, isn't it? Well, from your position watching the bullet or ball, it just looks like it's curving. It's not, it's travelling straight, but because you're attached to the ground that's turning with you looking at the bullet or ball, it appears to take a curved trajectory. Doesn't actually, just looks like it. But that would shorten flight times if it was Earth turning underneath bullets, balls, helicopters, hot air balloons, blimps, and airliners. Because an airliner travelling from Charlotte, North Carolina to Los Angeles would only take an hour and a half. If it was capable for me to look up at that flight and go, oh, look at that plane, it looks like it's drifting. Looks like it's going in a curved path, doesn't it? Yeah, that's Coriolis effect, observable only from the ground. Drift, not actual, observable only from the non-inertial turning reference frame. Well, if you're observing something in the sky seem to drift because you're turning beneath it, that's Coriolis effect. Then Earth's turning beneath aeroplanes, and their flight times would be shortened, and they are not. Earth isn't turning beneath anything.
No, conservation momentum. Conservation of momentum.
Isn't
That's what they'll come back with.
Isn't Coriolis.
I would like to point out that this contradiction that the Globers are having, the Earth travels together with the atmosphere, or they are two different reference frames, that contradiction, even if they resolve it in their own debate, it is irrelevant. The point is moot. We debunked the antecedent for that effect to be Earth-based.
But that would be them debunking the claim of the globe itself. I mean, that's what I find funny, is that the world-renowned priest, astrophysicist who gets paid to run around the world and teach people about this crap, he's the guy they're saying is wrong about this. But we should just trust random person on internet.
Trust them saying what? They're saying there's no effect to observe. Earth turns with the atmosphere. Therefore, no drift. So essentially, nothing happening then. Nothing to observe. So what's proving the Earth spins then? You're just justifying why we don't see drift, which is the globe claim that we'll see proof of spin. Well, if we don't see the globe claim proof of spin, spending your entire day explaining why we don't see it and there's nothing to see isn't going to prove a globe. But as John pointed out on yesterday's show, it serves them nicely anyway, because the entire time they're arguing about it, they're begging the question that Earth's spinning. Well, if Earth's spinning and atmosphere's spinning with it, we'll see no Coriolis drift, says the anti-flat earther. But if Earth's turning and it does turn underneath stuff, we'll see gyros drift at 15 degrees an hour, says globe believer. Well, in both instances, Earth's turning, by way of a begging the question fallacy. So they win either way, don't they? It doesn't matter if they're right or wrong. Meanwhile, there's no drift. There's nothing to prove we spin. If we were, we'd see drift like the globe claims, and we don't. No drift, no Earth turn. There isn't. That doesn't mean I expect you to tell me my reference frames are ruined or give me a prolonged explanation for why we're not seeing any drift.
Well, no, what my point is if we seen a drift in an object as it traveled, we could not ascribe it to the Coriolis effect because Earth has no radial value to describe it in such terms. So I could grant them all of their nonsense, and it would still be wrong.
Yeah, you could grant them their R value, but it would still stand in violation of the celestial sphere model. So there's a point where you're granting them nonsense, but Earth is actually flat, therefore claiming the ground's curving away from you will always stand in contradiction to the celestial sphere model and the building of buildings and the way you function in life generally, because we aren't on a sphere. So they're going to have a contradiction come up at some point. We just honed it, or you particularly, John, have honed it now to the point where you can point out where their model needed a flat plane and where their model doesn't work with the flat plane it was measured from.
Well, you can give them more, but then you have to take away everything else. They can't have the sun, moon, and stars rotating above them if you give them more, because that's the celestial sphere model. So they can have or, but they can't have that. And that is the proof that they're rotating. But they can't have, you can give them or mathematically, but they can't have that else then. But or also requires them having to admit it comes from a flat plane.
And just appealing to people who might be new to this, or just normies. Ask yourselves, just notice the behavior. Ask yourselves, why do the people who debate this on the Globe side will gladly tell you that Neil deGrasse Tyson is wrong about his claim that the Coriolis effect is actually apparent and you can measure it? Why do they go against that?
Because
when the very claim, when the very thing that they're telling you is that he's wrong, why would they tell you that? Because we don't see any Coriolis effect. And now they're giving you a reason as to why we don't see it. That's why they'll go against the priest who's literally paid to run around the world and teach people about this. They'll tell you he's wrong.
Right.
Well, he is, technically, because we don't have a Coriolis effect. And they know that, and it destroys their argument. So what they have to do is tell you, oh, why would you expect to see this thing that's claimed to be seen all the time?
Well,
just notice that.
My response to that would be, okay, so if we wouldn't expect to see any Coriolis deviation and our reference frames have been ruined, what proves the Earth spins then?
See, this is the thing. The word effect is the important part. Like what you just said there, Erwin, is extremely important, because if we can demonstrate what happens when we have a non-inertial reference frame and an inertial reference frame, and we can demonstrate the effect that we are calling and National Geographic are calling and the rest of sanity are calling the Coriolis effect, well, if they don't have an effect to show, and they don't have a force that they can harness, because they're claiming a force, they call it the Coriolis force, because it's incorrectly, as far as I'm concerned, called a pseudo-force. If they don't have anything to show, because that pseudo-force also involves showing something. The pseudo-force they're claiming also involves something to see. They don't have anything that they can actually visibly show you. They are outside of calculations.
And the stars rotating with the presupposition on top.
Well, they can't. That doesn't mean anything, because they can't show you the effect in the first place. They can't show you anything, not a pseudo force and not an effect. They can only show you a calculation that's based on a belief. That's all they can show you.
Well, they can show you apparent reference frames with the stars, but not actual effects of motion, which would be a part of spin. They can't show that part. Well, that part is kind of the most critical part to prove that you're spinning.
Exactly, not denying the effect.
Rotations don't really prove anything physical.
Exactly, they're just begging the question of it, and the thing they need to actually prove it, they're denying we would see, we wouldn't expect to see drift. It's like drift is the thing you need for us to see to prove we're spinning, not a denial of the thing that you need. and an explanation for why we wouldn't expect to see something that would prove you were spinning. Anyway, with over 150 people watching, and big shout out to Tabor J. Is it Eaton? Einstein married his cousin, calls his theory relativity. Comic genius. I know,
hold on, let me improve on that. He married his cousin twice. That's what E, Einstein, equals M, married, C, cousin, squared, twice stands for.
Where did you get that?
Hilarious.
That was brilliant. Excellent, Arwen. Very droll.
That is saying the roundabout.
It's also true. He did.
Yeah, I watched a Taboo conspiracy video where he's talking about the elites who all seem to marry incessantly with their own family, keeping the wealth within their own families, and the idea that the notion of genetic imperfection is almost certain if you are second, what do they call it? Second branch, second generation. I can't remember how they term it, where you're not like mother and daughter or mother and brother or whatever, you know, cousins basically. His argument was to say, while it's put out into the mainstream narrative that it's a very bad idea to have any sort of relations with your cousin, that's like the whole royal family, you know. But there we go. They seem to. It's one rule for one and one for the other when it comes to the elites. But there we go. An interesting side note from Taboo Conspiracy.
Did you know there was a song about Coriolis?
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to add on to that,
Who was that
for a second before we move on.
Well, who was that wanting to
elite-
talk about Coriolis when we were talking about cousins? How dare you?
You brought it up. No, but the elites do that. They like it is a contradiction to like what healthy human specimens would be like, which require just not inbreeding a lot. But they did it for power, right? So they deprioritized their genetic power, like their flexibility genetically, for being able to keep all the power and wealth in the family. And that's why they've done that for so long.
That's true. I just don't want to disagree with your entire point, but just the one little part of it, which was to say that in terms of the statistics that Taboo Conspiracy presented, I've done no research on this before anybody gets on me for clarifying these statistics. He was showing that it was not really any more statistically likely to have any genetic defects as a result of this, which was his main point that he was labouring.
Can I ask a fast question about the conversation you had with Rachel?
You can. I'll just summarise the point. The idea of the genetic imperfection was the propaganda point that he was making. That was the reason I dropped it in there. But someone else wanted to talk about Coriolis more importantly from, I think it was One Deck.
I was just saying, did you know there was a song about Coriolis?
No? Spin, Spin, Sugar?
Damn it.
No. It goes like this. You spin me right round, baby, right round. Globiolis like a right round from the ground.
That's Dead or Alive.
Coriolis is not actual spin, though. But
That's Dead or Alive.
Arwen was making it impossible for you to do.
Yeah, Arwen.
I'm sorry, I'm only making a point.
Yeah, I've got control over that for the audience. They didn't have to suffer that, just you and G+.
Oh, thanks.
Done now?
So just because I've now, literally because it's just happened, got an opportunity to mention it, right? When the gates are closed, I've now got a new little tool. I'll just show you this on screen. Although, can somebody in Discord say something, please?
Hello.
There you go. So this is actually a repurposed oscilloscope. So I just needed a monitor so I could visually see when somebody's talking when the gate's closed. So like then, Arwen's talking, and obviously he's not making his way to the audience because that part of the line in Voice Meter Banana isn't routing his audio to it because the gate's closed. But I can still see that he's doing it. There's a light that flashes with an oscilloscope. Anyway, I just thought it was quite interesting as I've been doing new computery stuff and upping my game slightly. The chat's a bit more slick. Do you want to see that again? Bam! There it is. Anyway, sorry, I'm just excited. New toys.
Little geeky audio nonsense.
I just wanted to know what she was saying about them saying that Earth doesn't spin like a roundabout. Because I was getting some of what you were saying, but I was doing something. I don't know if you addressed that or not.
They were telling the truth, Neil.
Yeah, Dead or Alive's too old now. It's like is that late 90s? Late 80s, sorry. Dead or Alive? It's too old. Although that said, going by my stats, is it too old? Yeah. It's at the tail end of the generation that watches this show, let's put it that way.
Well, am I not being heard here?
Yeah, we hear you, Neil.
Wait, what'd you say?
Something about Elvis or something.
So now we're going to talk about this, but not about genetic fallacies related to...
We deal with the physics and the physical natural world. We're not dealing with genetic fallacies.
What was the answer about the Earth not spinning like a roundabout?
They're like a record baby.
It doesn't, Neil. It doesn't. They were telling the truth to Rachel. When they said to
presupposed shape
Rachel,
that doesn't rotate.
when they said to Rachel,
go on, Brian. Third time's a charm.
Thanks, Nathan. When they said to Rachel, it doesn't spin like a roundabout, they were telling the truth. It doesn't.
Yeah, we got to that in the discussion yesterday. I was like, you've got to realise it's difficult to spot, but there's often a point where they deny their own claim as an anti-flat earther, and will say something like that. Well, Earth doesn't turn like a roundabout. Well, that's a concession. It's claimed to turn like a roundabout on an axis. That's what it's claimed to do. But when they get to the point that they're denying their own claim in the first instance, they're reliant on you wanting instinctually to point out what the globe claim really is, because they're denying it. But then you find yourself in an awkward position where you're fighting for the very thing you're trying to debunk, because your opponent is denying the thing they claim that you want to debunk. So they're denying that we should see drift. That's Coriolis effect at 15 degrees an hour. Thanks, Bob. That's the drift they say we'll see. But they deny it the moment you point out we haven't got it. And then you've got two choices. Spend a prolonged period of time explaining to them what their own claim is because they're denying it, or just agree. That's right, Earth isn't like a roundabout. It's not spinning like a record baby.
Yeah, was that not what we... I'll just put it on screen. That's not what we call the new normal reversal.
Yes.
You know, sorry, Adam, I was just going to say that's one of the dangers of begging the question, and Rachel fell into it. You know, and Coriolis is one of those topics where you got to beg the question if you want to have a discussion with them about it. You know, and it can be dangerous for your own understanding if you don't get that fine line you have to walk. It's what Nathan's good at doing.
We don't want to talk about individuals, but we are covering all of the things, like I said, that we put this up for. And new normal was one of the things that I think came out of the last time we discussed Coriolis, which is exactly what Nathan's saying. They'll get you to try and defend their position, and they'll deny their position. These are all the things that the globe blasts with. They'll deny what the priests say just to be anti-flat earthers and constantly self-contradict. We are rotating, we're not rotating, you know, coupled with the other bits. But these are all there, and they're all surfacing again as we're discussing what's common. It's quite telling. But all these points are covered, if you look at it. You know what I mean? We've covered them numerous times.
Let's just go through them one at a time. Read them off and we'll rattle off what we mean by it.
Okay. We'll start with the self-contradiction.
Yeah, speaks to itself. So claiming that Earth turns underneath there's going to be a 15 degrees an hour drift, then telling you that you and your reference frames are ruined and we wouldn't expect to see drift.
Even though pendulum drifts, but fundamentally, inability to formulate within scientific method. None of what they bring to the table as evidence is within scientific method, is it?
Perfect. So you've got examples like Foucault pendulum and gyroscope, where there claimed to be experimentation to demonstrate that the Earth turns beneath at a 15 degree an hour rate to cause the deflection in the gyro or the pendulum. Now, those aren't scientific. They aren't phenomena that you observe in nature. Nothing's drifting in nature, so they conjure it in a gadget and call it gizmo science, actually pseudoscience, so that you think the technology that they're presenting is proving something happening in nature, which it isn't.
Feeble attempts at distraction, I think, is open that up.
Calling a claim that we don't see drift that's claimed, 15 degrees an hour, that's Coriolis effect. They say we don't see it, and me saying we should, which I don't, is a straw man. That's not their argument that we should see Coriolis effect at the rate of 15 degrees an hour as Earth turns beneath. We don't say that, says the anti-flat earther. That's a straw man. Yeah, just a weak obfuscation technique. Distraction.
A few of them and all. Next one, I think, is quite pertinent for the anti-flat earther as they try to debate us, which would be globe blasphemy or a doctrinal denial of their globe priest. So as we discussed,
Neil deGrasse Tyson says the football went through the goal assisted by a 1/4 inch deflection to the right from Earth rotation. That's the claim, that the Earth turns underneath the football because the football's in an inertial reference frame and you're observing it from a non-inertial reference frame. That's 15 degrees an hour drift as Earth turns underneath, otherwise known as the globe Earth claim of Coriolis. Now, when we point out that if Neil deGrasse Tyson's claim in line with the globe of Coriolis deflection at 15 degrees an hour causing a 1/4 inch deflection to the right of the ball as it went through the goal, then Earth's turning underneath the ball. And if Earth's turning underneath the ball, then Earth's turning underneath the blimp. And the airliner, and a Charlotte, North Carolina to LA flight would only take an hour and a half instead of 5 hours. Then the reply is to say Neil deGrasse Tyson's claim that the Earth turned underneath the football is incorrect, because we're showing how it doesn't happen.
Yeah, and then finally the new normal reversal is to say, why would you expect? We wouldn't expect to see drift.
Yeah, back to my first example, it's always going to be the best one. I point out that Earth isn't turning underneath the blimp that's filming the game, even though Neil deGrasse Tyson says that Earth's turning underneath the football during the game. And Simon Dan turns around and says, you and your reference frames are ruined. Like, hold on, this isn't my burden of proof. Why are you reversing this burden onto me? Like, I've got the reference frames, I'm claiming them, and you've debunked them, when we point out that the globe's reference frames are ruined. Suddenly they become mine. Just a reversal of burden of proof.
There you go. All the symptoms to know if somebody is suffering with Coriolis virus when you're discussing with them.
There you have it. It's not like this is new. It was covered long before we got to the point of realising that their model in the first instance that requires an axis for axial rotation and a radial value for axial rotation, and those values came from measurements that were taken from a flat plane. That wasn't even around when we covered this last, and Adam came up with this. You can guess the time period from the from the hints, right?
Well, sorry, Nathan.
I was just going to say FHS, just for anybody in the States or anywhere else for that matter that doesn't know what that's a reference to. So FHS is our health service, which is the national as opposed to Flat Earth Health Service. But National Health Service is the UK hospital system, or NHS.
I did just rob that off of a NHS and just doctor it, yeah.
Yeah, you can see the F slightly wrong size. I love it. Very good.
That line in it, yeah.
What they want to do is they want to hand you their losing argument. That's what the basis of all of it is.
Exactly.
They want to be able to hand Flat Earther their losing argument and have you trying to prove rotation and them laughing at you.
That's what it sounds like. That's what it is.
That's exactly what it is.
We wouldn't
They
expect to see
abandon-
drift
They
implies
abandon
that...
all their arguments, and then they just make you the glober secretly. That's what they
saying
want.
we wouldn't expect to see drift is essentially projecting their losing claim that we will see drift at 15 degrees an hour on a turning Earth onto you when it fails. So we wouldn't expect to see drift, says the globe defender / anti-flat earther. It's like, I wasn't saying we would. The globe did. It just failed to demonstrate itself. Now you're telling me that my reference frames are ruined? What? No, that's your failed claim. So say they do the similar thing when they project your winning argument back onto you like it's a defence. Similar with the, well, Earth isn't like a spinning roundabout. Yeah. but you claim it is. So why are you telling me that?
Call Welcome to Flat Earth.
Very strange the way things are going. Very strange.
I just wonder if they really realize in those moments that they are completely abandoning the globe model when they do that. Do they even know that in the moment?
New normal reversal.
I don't even think they care. As long as they can find a point where they can make the flat earther wrong, they don't care.
With that, I'm going to say, if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Programming streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. So a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, joined as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, hit the PayPal link and all that good stuff. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching on an after show. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!